Part 2. The conversation set out to turn Eloquay calm visitors into briquified, motivated leads. If that sounds boring, then you haven't seen the video, in which Eloquay educates its potential customers about its suite of marketing lead generation products with a humorous, light, and engaging approach. Alright, then, the video begins, after a visitor indicates that she works in marketing. Obviously I'm not going to be able to use any of the typical marketing tricks on you sex. So allow me to just be direct puppies. The video tool leads people through a smart, fun, interactive series of questions and answers, making the experience a two-way instead of a one-way lecture. Be appropriate for your audience. Does be appropriate sound like something you're prudish and might hiss at you through pursed lips? Well, at the risk of sounding preachy, it's important to adopt an appropriate tone for your business purpose and for your audience. We said to have fun, we didn't say to be raucous. In fact, there's a huge difference between having fun and being wild, silly, or worse yet inappropriate. As with anything, it's important to understand both your identity and your audience. It's great to take some measure of risk, but be careful to remain consistent with who you are. The voice you choose must sync with your purpose and the people you are writing to. Build on your brand. Be sure that the voice and tone of your content reflect your brand and its attributes. Brand is another one of those squishy marketing terms that's interpreted and applied in 1,000 different ways. We asked the question, what is a brand? To our Twitter followers, and within 10 minutes we got a wide variety of answers. Here are a few. It's a promise. It's an expectation. It's product and personality. It's the full embodiment of a specific product or a service, including the company presentation and the consumer perception. An impression, image, or personality that has to leave a long-lasting favorable emotional feeling in the consumer's heart. A brand is what a brand does. A brand is the emotional value assigned to a product or service by the people who want it. The identity of a service or product that arouses different senses within the market. The distinguishing mark or image used by customers as a mental shortcut to sum up who you are and what you represent to them. The DNA of a product. A coding of uniqueness. The sum of all conversations. A product is something you buy. A brand is something you have a relationship with. Or this, from ExactTarget's Jeff Roars, the mark left after a red-hot iron is applied to a steer's hindquarters. Wise Guy Zero as defined here, brand is simply the image people have of your company or product. It's who people think you are. Or paraphrasing Ember Naslund of Radiant 6, quoting Z Frank, it's the emotional aftertaste that comes after an experience, even a second-hand one, with a product, service, or company. Know who you are is another way of saying, align your voice with your brand. But the result is the same. You have to make sure that the voice you use is completely in line with who your audience thinks you are. Consider Pawn Stars, a popular show on the History Channel, and compare it with Antiques Roadshow, which airs on PBS. Both shows are essentially the same, appraising antiques, memorabilia, Americana, and the like. But the approaches are vastly different, and so are the brands. Pawn Stars is colorfully gritty and blunt, Antiques Roadshow is highbrow and well-spoken. Which brings us to our next point, handily. Differentiate from the pack of bland. Just as each of us has a unique personality, each company has a unique perspective. Or it should, anyway. Rohit Bhargava effectively argues in Personality Not Included, McGraw-Hill, 2008, that being faceless doesn't work any longer. Personality is the key element behind your brand, and what it stands for, and the story that your products tell to your customers, Rohit writes. Every element of your business, from your interactions with your customers to the packaging of your product, is an element of your brand personality, and these are the elements that inspire delight or indifference among your customers. In short, personality matters. Personality is particularly critical in the age of social media, which requires focusing less on marketing your products and benefits, and more on understanding how to use the personality behind your brand to build a relationship with your customers, Rohit adds later. Let your originality, your specialness, your brand personality come through in your online content. Give your readers or visitors a sense of a person or point of view, just like Emma does. So does Young and Free Alberta, a website launched by Edmonton-based Service Credit Union in 2007 to connect a large $10 billion in assets financial institution to the 7 to 25 crowd in hopes of winning their business. Young and Free Alberta, www.youngfreealberta.com, is an ambitious program that includes a separate website, an annual marketing campaign, and spokesperson search to find the Alberta spokestroke Generation Y, as well as videos, Flickr photo feed, Facebook group, and more. But you get a sense of its voice by browsing through its videos and on its blog, where an entry on budgeting. Budgeting can be easy. Really. Clearly aims to make finances less intimidating for young adults. One of the toughest things about budgeting is that it takes a lot of work in the form of willpower. Do not need the $150 pair of shoes. I do not need the $150 pair of shoes, and also in the form of just sitting down and writing up a budget. That's why, my young and free friends, I thought that I would share with you a nifty little tool that makes budgeting a piece of cake. Know who you are talking to. As explained in Chapter 3, your content and all of your marketing really is the start of a relationship with your customers, right? So who are you talking to? Who are you trying to attract? You 11 want to broadly identify the types of buyers you want to reach. Marketers call that process developing buyer personas for the stuff you sell. A buyer persona essentially represents a type of buyer you think will be interested in your product or service, and the idea behind creating buyer personas is to understand customers' specific wants and needs. Knowing your audience is particularly important for creating content, and buyer personas can help shape your content to make it more relevant to your prospective buyers, especially as you are using words and phrases your potential customers use. Most businesses will be speaking to more than one persona. For example, Anne is on the board of trustees at her local public library, and its customers are any of the some 10,000 card-carrying patrons who visit to check out any of the 250,000 items in the library collection. That sounds like one persona, right? It's not, because the library actually serves vastly different constituents, those who access the library's collections both online and in person, those who live in neighboring communities. The library is a key member of a regional lending consortium, other libraries that borrow from its collection people, foundations, and the local friends of the library group that support the library with donations and Raising local community groups that partner with the library on programs. Public school teachers, genealogy researchers who rely on the library's extensive genealogy materials. Nonprofits that use the library's meeting rooms. Parents of young children who frequent the busy children's room and bring their children to story hours. Teenagers who hang out in the teen room and participate in library programs like WeI tournaments and library lock-ins. And finally, other people who live in the community and rely on the library as a resource for community programs and information like recycling programs, senior classes, or summer programs for kids. Just as thinking about these various personas can help the library better serve its community, buyer personas can help shape your content to make it more relevant to your prospective customers. It's important to think about how your personas might shape the voice of your company, and specifically what words and phrases and tones your personas relate to. How do you figure out what words and phrases your personas use and relate to? Broadly, by listening before you talk. Ideally, you can interview those people you are trying to reach in your marketing. But you can also gain insight by listening online, by reading the same publications or blogs that they do, by listening in on conversations and social outposts like Facebook and Twitter, and by using online keyword research tools like Google AdWords, Word Tracker, and Keyword Discovery to see what keywords related to your business people are searching for. That last point brings up another reason to literally speak the language of your customers. You want to appeal to them, certainly, but you also want your content to appear in search results when your would-be customers are looking for what you have to offer. How do your customers describe your product or service? What words do they use? Lee Auden, CEO of Topnick Marketing in Minneapolis, Minnesota, relayed a story about a client who described its business as telemarketing outsourcing. But through keyword research, Lee's client discovered that its customers typically searched on call center outsourcing instead. The language used on social sites is like the canary in the coal mine, says Lee. It can tell you an awful lot about your customers and how you can engage them. And how to talk to them. In literature and in business, people seem to imbue the notion of voice with some mystical quality. By tapping into it, or uncovering it, or finding it, or however it is supposed to magically reveal itself to you, you'll find your higher, truer self, or the essential nature of your company. There may be some truth to that. But more often than not, in art and in business, that voice is deliberately crafted, not something you stumble across like you might stub your toe on something you've been missing. The audience you are developing the material for plays a role in developing the voice. It's not about us, it is about them, says 1938 Media founder Lauren Feldman. Author Stephen Pressfield says the critical fact to remember is that the writer's voice is artificial, because the voice can change from one piece of work to another. The writer's voice, or directors, choreographers, photographers, entrepreneurs, arises from the material itself and acts in service to that material, Pressfield writes on his blog. It can, and often does, change from book to book, dance to dance, album to album, business venture to business venture. Your intended audience plays a role in how you think about developing your voice, and the role you want it to play in your marketing. Communicative healthcare associates, mentioned earlier, might adopt a more expert tone when it addresses institutions, and another, warmer tone for families that need its services. It might not always be necessary to adjust your voice. Companies with a very narrow tool have only on VUICE. If you serve several specific audiences, consider tuning your content voice to each. Take a stand. Voice isn't just about how you write, but the perspective you bring. It's important to communicate a position, or an attitude, about a subject. Let your readers know where you are coming from, or how you feel about a topic or focus. Doing so communicates both who you are, and the unique perspective you bring to whatever you are writing about. It also helps protect you from being a YouTube blogger, who simply regurgitates what others are already saying. Successful bloggers have something of their own to say, says Problogger's Darren Rose. Consider the church marketing sex blog www.churchmarketingsuccess.com. Published by the Center for Church Communication, a nonprofit founded to help its member churches market themselves more effectively. From the name of the blog itself to the post titles, Other Churches Suck, How Not to Market Your Church, is there an app for that? You get an immediate sense of the nonprofit's perspective, which is that although church marketing efforts are usually replete with lousy communication practices, cheesy logos, and bad clip art, it doesn't have to be so. And the nonprofit can help. We've got the greatest story ever told, but we don't know how to tell it, says founder Brad Abari. Everything about the organization's blog underscores the idea that we help the church tell that story, Abari adds. HubSpot, which sells what it calls inbound marketing software, takes a stand when it says that so-called interactive outbound marketing methods like trade shows, email blasts to purchase lists, telemarketing, and advertising, among other things, are old school. Instead, it insists that all the hip kids know what works, which is inbound marketing that attracts customers to you and includes producing killer content, by the way. In countless blog posts, videos, and other content, HubSpot is unwavering. A few years ago, on his OnStarChap's blog, HubSpot founder Dharmesh Shah articulated the angst that taking a strong stand can create for business leaders. He was speaking about a video that HubSpot produced, starring CEO Brian Halligan. When building this video, we had to decide, are we really advocating that companies throw away all of their old marketing methods including telemarketing so they can switch to our way inbound marketing? It's just not practical. ILL asked people to do that. We'd risk losing a bunch of prospects that just wouldn't take us seriously. We'd risk a bunch of our prospective customers thinking we were a whole lot of clueless mailers. But we did it anyway. Then, we went a step further. When we created the associated blog article, we gave it a controversial title: Dude, Cold Calling is for Losers. Now, not only are we making lame of people that are doing cold calling, we are actually calling them losers. Remember, we have 5,000 plus people that are subscribed to this blog. Many of them are mailers, and most of them are likely do some sort of telma-idioting. Woes HubSpot take some here. Sometimes. HUD Marketing Vice President Mike Volpe says it's a calculated risk. If you try to please everyone, you end up being bland and no one talks about you, Mike says. HubSpot frequently takes a stand in many of its blog articles, such as announcing its decision not to exhibit at live trade shows and events. Sometimes we even get beat up in the comments over our point of view, Mike adds. But, by taking a stand, we are stimulating conversation. As Guy Kawasaki says, don't be afraid to polarize people. Most companies want to create the holy grail of products that appeal to every demographic, social economic background, and geographic location. To attempt to do so guarantees mediocrity. And finally, your voice should be authentic. Authenticity is one of those soft, amorphous words that's tossed around quite a bit these days, like transparency and being genuine. It's hard to understand what authenticity really means, as the idea is open to wide interpretation. When we say to be authentic, we mean you should make it clear that your stuff has the stamp of an actual person or actual people, and that person or those people have the qualities, a point of view, a personality, a sense of enthusiasm for the subject, and suitability to your audience, that make for a compelling approach to content as a solid foundation for the start of your relationship with your audience. You should also be comfortable being who you are, which is pretty much where we started this chapter. It's about not forcing your voice or style to be what it's not. It's about fostering a voice that best represents you, your company, and your goals, and that will resonate with your intended audience. Does that sound hopelessly new age and squishy? It's not. As John Jett, author of the Referral Engine Portfolio, 2010, says, you don't always have to try to catch the latest fad. Just capture what's real about your product or service. Honesty sells because you can usually pull it off. Be just what some target market wants and be it all the way. When John said that, in 2006, he wasn't talking specifically about voice. But it applies as well to your company's communication style as to anything else. 18 business buzzwords we need to ban, because they make us sound like tools, and got an email press release from a technology company the other day crowing about a partnership with another organization. It read, in part, we believe the alliance represents a synergistic win-win with significant value add for both solutions, allowing each to utilize and leverage their unique strengths in the market. Huh? If the news was worth covering, she couldn't tell, because the press release was stuffed to the seams with jargon-filled corporate speak. She deleted the email almost immediately. Sat back for a minute, and thought about E.B. White. E.B. White was, of course, the author of Charlotte's Web and Stuart Little. But he was also the co-author, with William Strunk Jr., of The Elements of Style. Actually, in 1959, White edited and updated Strunk's Elements, originally published in 1918. Strunk had been one of White's professors at Cornell. The Elements or Style is considered a classic playbook for writers. And you'll find it in full view on the bookshelves of most writers in the way that, as the writer Richard Ford has said, you'll find the Gideon Bible in most hotel rooms. As a beacon to the hapless, in case your reckless ways should strand you here, there's help. The Elementals of Style doesn't teach anyone how to write, of course. But it does school you about critical fundamentals of the art and science of writing, clarity, brevity, boldness. E.B. White has been dead for almost 25 years, and it's been 50 years since White's version first hit the streets. Yet the brief 85 pages volume is newly relevant. More so, in fact, for us and you and businesses struggling to find their way as media companies in this newly social world. In the 19,805, when Anne was a student at Simmons College in Boston, her first journalism class was with a professor named Charlie Ball, who assigned The Elements of Style as the only required textbook for the course. Professor Ball did his best to impart the fundamentals of reporting and writing the news, conveying the inverted pyramid approach to reporting that puts the meatiest, most important stuff at the top of the news article. Especially in pre-internet days, when print newspaper editors were necessarily stingy with column inches, journalists needed to be able to churn out clean, accurate, and most important, brief prose. This is how direct and brief I want your lead sentence to be, Professor Ball said to the class one day, dead. That was the condition of the body of a Caucasian male found in the park. He was joking, of course. But you get the point. In those days, and sentences were painfully long and unfortunately overwritten, and they tended to weave a tale versus cutting directly to the chase as good reporting should. As Professor Ball handed her embarrassingly marked up copy back to her, he invariably said, do not be tempted by a $20 word, when there is a 10-center handy, ready and able. He was quoting the Elements number 14, avoid fancy words, in his characteristically direct way. And so I dunked to Strunk and White that semester like an infant lab monkey conversational, and that the contributors write from the eye, from their direct experience with the then nascent idea of marketing or advertising a business on the internet at ClickZ, based on a set of reminders and rules set forth by Strunk and White. She corrected Frank and speak. Jargon, indirect phrasing, qualifiers, passive voice, overwriting, overstating, unorthodox spelling, and awkward and unclear or pretentious phrasing, and, yes, she preferred the standard to the awful big goodbye, monetization. And in doing so, she applied the Elements of Style again. In a newly digital world, she saw the work she did with the writers at ClickZ as almost a calling to strip the corporate from the speak. Business writing could sound human. In his day, E.B. White seemed to hold a low opinion of writing done for business or marketing, but he lived in a different world, an age of billboards people paid attention to, and jingles they would hum. Yet interestingly, today, in the world in which we do business ostensibly marked by an allegiance to authenticity, and engagement, and trust, and personality, and